So today's session, it's something very interesting because it's going to be primarily dealing with the human resource management in healthcare. And as you have seen in the last 2 days, when Sharif on the first day talked about the importance of involving human resource management professionals when you design your hospitals. So it all started from there in the first session. And then in the second session, Matthew was talking about branding and how do you create trust. That was the second session where, again, the trust is not going to come from the building. The trust is going to come from the people who work for you. The people, the caregivers we were talking about yesterday, who are going to give that sense of trust to your patients. And then yesterday we did talk about a lot about moving from customer satisfaction to loyalty. And we mentioned that for having a customer loyalty, we have to give him the value that he desires. And the question is, who will deliver that value? That value is going to be delivered by the staff, the employee. So again, the importance of an employee. And then there was a wonderful presentation by Zuleika Hospital on what they did. And the first thing they did was that they did brainstorming and they were on the same page. So there was some kind of an engagement process that they underwent so as to deliver what they were promising. So basically today we are going to move from the concept of the external customer to the concept of the internal customer, that is your employee. And let me ask you a question. If I was to ask you all, who's more important, the external customer or the internal customer, how many of you say external customer is more important than the internal customer? That's my question. Senior, you think external customer is more important than the internal customer? Anyone else who feels that external customer, that's the patient, is more important than the employee?
I would say 60-40.
60 is what?
60 is external customer.
External customer.
One we can still sort them out.
Yeah.
External.
So you also feel external customer is more important. The patient is more important than the employee. Okay, now how many people feel that internal customer is more important than the external customer? That is, the employee is more important than the external customer. I'm one of them.
I'm one of them.
You're one of them too?
Because,
great.
If they are well mobilized, they will retain the patients.
Yeah. In fact, there is a very interesting book which our chairman is making everyone read these days in our organization, which has been written by a guy called Vineet Nair, who is the CEO of HCL Technologies, and how he brought transformation in the organization. And the heading of that book is, the title of that book is, Employees First, Customers Second. And by that he means that actually it is the employees who are going to deliver the value to the customer. So if your employees are not engaged, or if your employees are not right, then that value to the customer is not being delivered. And that is where the huge problem occurs, because the value is being delivered by the employee to the customer. It's not delivered in the boardroom. It's delivered when there's an interface between the employee and the customer. So I hope I'm able to make you understand that actually we are not saying, of course, the customer is the king, no doubt about it. But the king needs to be served. So you need to have employees who are able to deliver that value. Okay, so now in the first session, I'm going to give you a brief overview. And then we have some real expert speakers who are going to deal with the intricacies of what we discuss in the morning. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what happens in organizations, what should be happening, and then we'll go to the micro aspects of it as new speakers come on. So basically, in the next half an hour or 35 minutes, we are going to discuss how to attract, how to develop, and how to engage employees. And before we start, let me ask all of you, how many of you have an employee engagement plan for 2011? How many of you have an employee engagement plan for 2011? None? You have it? Good. So you're on the right track. In fact, yesterday also I said the same thing, right? Good. Okay. So let's see why it is becoming more and more important. Why are we saying employees first, customers second? Why is it so? Why is this paradigm shift happening? So if you see traditionally, say 20 years back, hospitals were competing on cost, They were competing on technology, so I had a 1.5 Tesla MRI, then I went to GE, they gave me a 3 Tesla MRI, and I said, wow, I got a 3 Tesla MRI. So I used to compete on technology. The hospital would also compete on treatment availability, which was not available. There would be a surgeon who would be doing a particular procedure. Other hospitals did not have such doctors, so I was competing on something which others didn't have to offer. And also some hospitals were providing alternate therapies for treatments which were not existing in allopathic. So if you go to Raffles Hospital in Singapore, they have a full floor on holistic medicine. Though Raffles deals primarily with allopathic medicine, they have a whole floor dealing with Chinese medicine and other forms of holistic medicine. So these were the parameters on which the hospitals were competing. And you will agree with me that all these can be copied. Am I right?
Yes.
I buy a 3 Tesla MRI, tomorrow you will also buy one. I have one specialist doctor, tomorrow you will also get another one who does the same procedure, maybe better. Now, as the economy changed and as the customer became more important, what happened was that the rules of the game started changing. And in the new economy, as I call it, as the age of intangibles, winning will spring from organizational capabilities such as speed of care. Today, the speed of care is very important. The golden hour, that's the difference between the life and the death. Responsiveness of your staff that we were talking about, the moments of truth. Agility, empathy that we talked about yesterday. Employee competence, customer service. We all talked about this. Today, these are going to be the differentiators between me and my competitors. And the good thing is that these cannot be easily copied. So if I have an engaged employee force, it's very difficult for another hospital to create an engaged employee force unless they change their culture. And culture change is not that easy. So today, while these things are difficult to get in your organization, once your organization has these kind of USPs, obviously you'll be much ahead of competition because they can easily not be copied. And if you see, all these parameters are related to your human resources. All of them, speed of care, responsiveness, agility, empathy, employee competence, is all related to human resource. So on one hand, the human resource today is becoming much, much more important, but on the other hand, the world is facing a future talent famine which will continue till 2020. And this was the data from 720 companies across the Asia Pacific, which said that the average Fortune 500 company expects 33% turnover in executive ranks in the next 5 years. This was not only healthcare, this was 720 companies in different service sectors. So on one hand, we are saying that our USPs are related to parameters which are related to our human capital. And on the other hand, we have an issue that there is a huge talent famine. And we are finding it difficult because you could get a good employee. There are 10 others who are wishing to take him away from you as soon as they get a chance. And I think we have all gone through this. So the challenge is how to attract them, how to develop them, how to engage them, and how to retain them. And I'm sure that all the hospital providers would be facing this problem of attrition. Does anyone not face problem of attrition? You don't face problem of attrition? You do. Every one of us is facing a problem of attrition. I remember 3 months back, I went to my hospital in Sohar, and the female radiologist came and told me, Dr. Malik, I'm planning to leave. I said, what happened to you? She said, well, your competitor is opening, he's giving me much more salary than what you're offering me. And to get a female radiologist in GCC is like getting God here. It's very, very difficult to get a female radiologist. So I had to bend backwards, agree to all her demands, give her 3 cups of coffee, sit with her, do all the sweet talk, and make her stay back. So there is a huge, huge challenge of attrition that all companies are facing. But there are ways and means where you can reduce your attrition vis-a-vis other organizations. Coming specifically to the human resources and healthcare industry, this is the data of US GCC, there is no data. The healthcare industry is one of the largest employers in the world. And healthcare industry is the fastest growing industry in the world. Do you know that? Did you know that? It used to be the second fastest growing industry in the world after retail, till it overtook retail 2 years back. Today it is the fastest growing industry in the world. And healthcare is likely to remain the nation's largest employer in USA and may even extend its lead. So there is a huge, huge demand. 7 of the 20 fastest growing occupations in the country are in healthcare. And the healthcare labor market will grow at a rate of 49% over the next 5 years. So on one side, we are seeing that the demand is hugely increasing. On the other side, we are seeing that supply is not increasing proportionately. So there's a huge demand and supply gap. That's why your human capital today is very, very important and precious to be kept very, very carefully. 30 to 40% of the healthcare company's expenditure go for human resource costs. That you would agree to. People who run hospitals would agree that 30 to 40% of your indirect cost is HR cost. Maybe even more than 40%. If your top line is not too good, that human resource cost could be even 50%. And large part of the solution in improving healthcare lies in managing the talent that drives the system and also accounts for most of its costs. So if you have engaged employees who deliver value to your customers, if you have less attrition, don't you think your company is going to make more profits? Will it or not?
Yes.
Yes. So then let me ask you this question. How many of you believe in this equation that people is equal to profits? Sure.
Yes.
All of you believe in that? Okay, very good. And I'm only substantiating it that high involvement, high performance, high commitment management practices actually give very high economic returns. And by managing people well, as you said, people is equal to profits, you could actually increase your productivity by 30 to 50%. And I'm going to show you some surveys which show that how employee engagement can increase your productivity and profits in between 30 to 50%. But while we are all saying that people is equal to profits, let me see and let me ask you, let's be truthful to each other, what is the reality? Don't you think this is the reality? When there are low profits, there are high costs, lousy customer service and low stock price, which is the budget that you cut the first? Training. You cut training budget. You cut the budget of hiring full-time staff. You go to part-time staff. You say that we are overstaffed. Why do we use this word overstaffed? When you did your manpower planning, you planned according to certain number of footfalls. If those footfalls are not happening, it's not that you have excessive staffing. Basically, you have low patience. But all the CEOs, all the senior managers, first and foremost hit 2 departments. One is the HR and other is the marketing. Marketing is the other department which is hit. So what happens is reduce training, have layoffs, salary freeze or reduction. You don't give them, so employee has worked hard. If you tell an employee that, oh, we are not making profits, so we can't have a salary increase this year, how correct is it? He has worked day in and day out. There is something wrong with your business model. You need to introspect yourself. Where did you go wrong? And what happens then is you start using part-time and contract labor, and there is a freeze on hiring and promotions. And I must confess, I have also been a part of this when I was handling hospitals. So it's not that, the first thing that I also did till I realized was this, that you reduce the training, layoffs, freeze the hiring. And what does this lead to? This leads to decreased motivation and effort, more accidents, more turnover because employees are not engaged, reduced job focus and work, reduced job satisfaction, which in turn leads to again low profit. So it's a vicious cycle. So though we all say that people is equal to profits, in reality, I don't think most of us practice it. Because the day we start realizing that people is equal to profits, this cycle will change. HR is not going to be something that is going to be touched. As someone rightly said, it's more important to manage your business right rather than being in right business. So we need to learn as managers to manage it correctly, not that you start reducing your manpower costs by having layoffs and by reducing trainings. Okay, now the second question that comes is good pay enough to attract and retain employees? I want to ask this question from all of you.
No. No.
You guys are great. Good pay is not enough to attract and retain employees? Sure? No? Okay.
It's correct for the first part.
Huh?
It's correct for the first part, to attract, but not to retain.
Not to retain. To attract good pay is good to attract.
Actually, it's the main thing.
Okay.
To attract,
But it might not
to
be good
retain is
employees.
Now, you'll be surprised what I'm going to show you now. So we will now see the critical reasons of why employees leave an organization and critical reasons why employees join an organization. And then we'll come back to this question, whether it is the good pay which attracts the employees to the organization, or is it a better pay that attracts the employee to leave your organization and go to another organization, okay? So let's try to understand the critical reasons of attrition. Why do employees leave an organization? Is it just for better pay or is it for something else? Now I'm going to show you two surveys. One survey was done in 2004, which is a very famous survey done by Robert Fall. And the other survey was done in 2006, which is a very famous Gallup survey. I'm sure you're all aware of Gallup. Okay, so now 79% of employees leave an organization for reasons other than salary. This is the Robert Half survey. Limited opportunities for advancement of career growth was responsible for 39% of employees leaving an organization. Unhappiness with management was 23%. Lack of recognition was 17%. And inadequate salary and benefit was 11%. This was a survey done by Robert Half in 2004. It was an international survey. So what does this tell me is that employees primarily do not leave an organization just because of inadequate salary or if they are being offered a better salary. There is more to it. Now, similar results were seen by the Gallup Business World Compensation Benefit Survey, which was done in 2006. Here if you see, actually 48% of employees leave an organization because of lack of career growth. Compensation is only 22%, so rest of it is 78% is because of non-compensation factors. And this is correlating very well with the Robert Half survey, where he said 79% of the employees leave an organization for reasons other than inadequate salary. It was 79% here, 78% here. It's too much of a coincidence that it's such close percentages. Huh? And other reasons for leaving was learning opportunities, talent fit, job content, work-life balance, immediate supervisor, family responsibility, location of workspace. But 48% of your people leave an organization because of lack of career growth. Okay, now we first found out what are the reasons why employees leave an organization, right? And we found out that majority of them don't leave because of inadequate salary. Now let's see what are the factors which attract talent to an organization. To answer our question, is good pay enough to attract and retain talent? Now this is the same survey of Gallup in 2006. If you see here, these are the responses in blue of the HR managers and these are of the employees. So again you see 55% of employees join another organization because of career growth and learning opportunities. So it's very well correlating. When we talk of attrition, we said the majority of employees leave because of lack of career growth. And when we talk of critical factors in attracting talent to an organization, 55% talk about career growth and learning opportunities. And I'll give you an example. I can give you my example. I'll give another example. I have never ever taken a new job because of having a raise in salary. Never ever. It has always been career growth. It has always been a more challenging opportunity. If you ask yourselves, you will realize that the majority of you would have left a company or left a job and taken up a new job would not be just because of salary. Salary would be just a small component of it. Compensation, again here, if you see, it is only 14% of the employees leave an organization for reason of compensation. And then the other factors. So now coming back to the question, is good pay enough to attract and retain talent? No. Agreed? So why is it that hospitals use pay as their primary attraction and retention vehicle? That's the next question which comes. If good pay is not sufficient to attract and retain talent, then why is it that hospitals use pay as their primary vehicle to retain talent?
Lack of leadership skills?
Absolutely. Perhaps because it is easier and more quantifiable. So someone comes, he says, I'm working with you, you like me, I say I'm leaving. I know you have a weakness for me. You'll say, Sanjiv, don't go, I'll give you some extra money. So I'll stay back. After 6 months, I'll again come back to you. When I'm leaving, you'll again increase my salary. That's what happens. And people never stay back in an organization because that is something which is a hygiene factor, which we'll be discussing. That's not a motivational factor for employees to stay. As Abraham Maslow said, if the only tool you have is hammer, you'll see every problem as a nail. And that's what we as leaders do. We think that every problem is because of inadequate salary. So the only tool we use is to increase the salary of employees and try to retain them. But the reality is that that is not going to be a solution to your problem. Okay, yesterday we were talking about customer value. And we said that employees are our internal customers. I want to ask, how many of you have an employee value proposition for a person who wants to join your company? You understand? Hmm? We don't have. Employee value proposition is basically a statement why the total work experience at your hospital is superior to that at the other hospitals. And I know most of us do not have an employee value proposition. Now think about it. You go to a company for an interview and the HR manager there tells you, hi, how are you? We talk, we discuss, and he gives you a paper or a file which says, this is our employee value proposition. How good will you feel? You'll feel great. From day one, you will feel that this hospital or this organization cares for its employees, and then you spell out what's your employee value proposition, which I'm going to share with you. And believe me, that is going to be something which is going to attract good talent to your company. You have to do things a little differently than what others are doing.
Yeah, but this one can be really dangerous because you have to, this can be very dangerous because you have to prove for the new employee who's joined the organization that what you mentioned at the beginning is met during the stay.
Ma'am, as I yesterday said, management is all about transparency and trust. No management personal leader has been successful without being transparent. And I'll give an example of Narayan Murthy. How many of you know this name, Narayan Murthy? Narayan Murthy is the person who started Infosys. Infosys is today a multinational. And he had a rule that at the age of 60, the employee has to retire. The day he became 60 years of age, he stepped down as the chairman of Infosys. You have to be transparent, because if you are not transparent in what you are promising to your employees, you are internally damaging your brand. Basically, this branding thing is external branding, internal branding, and you integrate. It's all an integrated process. So you will have to be transparent. We'll go through it. I don't think it's that dangerous as you're thinking right now, because you don't have to go in so many of micro details. Basically, the value proposition will identify the unique people policies, processes, and programs that demonstrate the company's commitment to employee growth, recognition, and management development. I'm sure all of you have training programs, all of you have some programs about competency enhancement, all of you have programs about the talent growth, all of you have certain policies about performance appraisals. I'm sure, just put them, make them transparent. Why not? Okay, let's go ahead. Now, when we create an employee value proposition, as yesterday we were talking about, that when we create a customer value, we should know what does the customer value. What is that is of value to the customer. And similarly for employees, you need to know what does the employee value. So you might be giving him 10 things, but he doesn't value 8 of those things. That is not an employee value proposition. So there was a huge survey done in the late 50s by Frederick Herzberg, and he asked 2 questions from employees. What factors lead you to experience extreme dissatisfaction with your job? That was the first question he asked. And the second question he asked was, what factors lead you to experience extreme satisfaction at the job? So these were the 2 questions that he asked. And based on that, on the responses, he divided these factors into 2. One were known as the hygiene factors, and one were known as the motivational factors. And if you see here, the hygiene factors was quality of supervision, pay. So what I'm saying is that 2006 survey talks the same thing which late 1950 talks. That pay is something which is a hygiene factor to keep you comfortable, but it's not a motivational factor. Then company policies, physical working conditions, relations with others, and job security. But the motivational factors were here. Promotion opportunities. Again, the same thing in 2006 as was in this. Opportunities for personal growth, recognition, responsibility, achievement, and skill enhancement. So when you are creating your employee value proposition, you will have to focus on these, because this is what will motivate the employees and make them engaged. So friends, people work for money, but they work even more for meaning in their lives. And we'll have to get rid of this mindset that a good pay is enough to attract and retain employees. So the first thing that, and these are things which we have done, which we are doing, and which have had a good impact for us, and I think it will have a good impact. How many of you have a vision and mission statement for your organization? You have it? All of you have it? Now be truthful. How many of you remember it? Truthful. You remember it? Not full, no? That's it. Tell me one person who remembers his vision and mission statement fully. None, none.
The meaning of the words.
The words. See, why I'm trying to say this is, unfortunately, these vision mission statements have become ornamental in organizations for decorating the boardrooms. Because an employee, the feet on the street, is you are not being able to make him relate to the vision and mission of the company. And that is why most of us who are at senior leadership positions, if we are not able to remember the vision and mission statement, how do we expect a nurse or a paramedic to even understand what does that mean? It's,
Understanding the different than memorizing.
see, ma'am, you do a survey and you ask them what is the vision and mission statement. Believe me, you will find very embarrassing answers. So you at your level as a senior leader might understand it, but down the line, do they understand it or not? Now, for example, there is a nurse, or there is a paramedic, an X-ray technician. Let's say your vision statement is to provide world-class healthcare. Does he understand what is world-class healthcare? An X-ray technician, does he understand what is world-class healthcare? If I ask world-class healthcare from amongst us, we will all have different opinions about what's world-class healthcare. Someone might say having an accreditation in the hospital is world-class healthcare. Someone might say that having complication rates less than this level is world-class healthcare. So different people will have different perceptions. The idea is to get the whole company to a vision which is understandable by each and every one of the employees in the same manner. Is it clear? So for that, I'm going to give you a link today. You use this, what is known as the personal impact map, and this is the link here. You can just note down this link. What this does is, the personal impact map basically helps the employees to identify how specific activities that they perform contribute to the organizational vision. So we were coming back to the radiology technician. if I'm able to make him understand how his activities help in adding to the organizational vision, then is the only time he's going to understand the vision and mission of your company. So use this tool of personal impact map. It breaks it down to smaller, simpler things, till it comes to a level where the activity that an employee does gets directly correlated to the vision of your company. That is when we will move from a vision to a shared vision. So the take-home message is move from vision to shared vision. Not just a vision which is decorating the boardroom, but a vision which is shared by each and every employee. The second thing is defining performance. Okay, let me ask, how many of us have a clearly defined job description before we hire an employee? Clearly defined job description before we hire an employee. How many of us have that? Good. 2, 3, 4, 5. Clearly defined, huh? Not generic. Not generic. For example, a OT nurse's job description is very different than a nurse who's working in the IPD. The problem is, we would have a job description for a nurse, but we would not have specific job descriptions. So when you do not define specifically what is expected of the employee, how are you supposed to expect that he or she is going to perform to the level that you desire? And then we all have job descriptions. Do we have tools to measure how that guy is performing? So job description will say to provide comprehensive, compassionate, empathetic care to your patient in the ward. How do you measure it? How do you measure it? You can't measure it. Because beyond job description, you have to go to the key result areas and the key performance indicators. Those are the measurable elements of a job description. So I go to take a job, they say, Sanjiv, these are your KRAs, these are your KPIs. After 1 year, we are going to measure you against this. I know this exactly what I'm supposed to do. And when I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, it's much more likely that I do it better than when I'm just shooting in the dark. Right? And this was a 20-year study by Gallup which said that knowing what is expected of one was the top factor in motivating employees enough to make their employers successful. Okay, so take-home message is that if levels of performance are indefinable and immeasurable, then an organization has not properly examined the need for this position and the role it plays in its success. The third is reinforcing a growth culture. Now, again a question. How many of us do a competency mapping for our employees? How many of us do a competency mapping for our employees? Competency mapping is that I am at a job, I should have these level of competences, but I don't have. So that's a mapping that I am at this level, and this is the level of competence required. Because based on the competency mapping, you will have the training needs assessment. You do it? Good. For all employees? Only for nursing. You only do it for nursing. Okay, fine. So, yes, if you're doing it, good. But we need to do competency mapping and training need identification for all employees, starting from the driver to the front office to everyone. And then, when you find this gap, then you help them acquire new skills. And that's where the career growth I was talking to you about starts. When an employee acquires new skill, he starts feeling that there is a growth for me. There is some learning opportunity for me. I might be considered for a higher position. But if you don't do any of this thing, the employee will leave you because of lack of career growth. And then as they acquire new skills, they should be given more responsibility. Fourth is, which is a very radical idea, and I would like to know your opinion also, that compensation should be linked to future expected performance and not because of the past achievement. Do we agree to that or no? Let me explain this. Suppose I am working as a staff nurse in one of the wards, and at the end of the year, now I am being told that you are going to be the head nurse of the ward. So my compensation for the coming year, it should be based on my past performance as a ward nurse, or it should be based on my new position as a head nurse.
New position.
New position as a head nurse, right? But what is the reality? What do you do?
Trust.
New position.
What you guys are saying is correct, but what we all do is something different. We increase the salary on the past performance of the employee as a staff nurse rather than the new position as the head nurse. And what I'm suggesting here is that base pay increase should be based on the expected future contribution that the employee will make to your organization. And for the past performance, there should be incentive given to that person based on his or her performance.
It's very complicated actually. It's a bit complicated because it's a bit complicated because when we are evaluating the staff, we evaluate past performance, and that's what we are doing. But the future project is you expect it, but you never know that will be realized or not.
Sir, actually, what I'm telling you is a very smart way. The amount of salary increase will be the same.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is for the past performance, if the person has done well, you give it as an incentive, as a one-time incentive. But the base pay increase should happen on what is going to be the future role of the employee.
Yes, that is what I was.
Because
if you're going to promote this nurse, how you will be guaranteed? We are promoting our people because of their past experience. They are good, they are punctual, they are etc. So how do you make sure that for the new position she will be fit? So
That
in the
is-
future, if it's not fit, how should be fit?
For the new position, you have done the competency mapping, you have done the training need assessment, you have the past engagement of the employee with you. Let me complete.
Okay.
Now, what I'm saying is that if she was very good as a ward staff nurse, right? So you should give her an incentive. You can come this sit this side. The chair, take the chair. You will give her or him the incentive for good work she has done. But don't increase the base pay.
Yeah, okay.
What happens is that a staff nurse who is going to remain as a staff nurse, what will happen after 8 years or 5 years is that her base pay will be so much that what you will say is that I am able to get a good staff nurse for say 3,000 dirhams. Why am I paying 10,000 dirhams? And that is the time all these problems start. So for the future expected performance and for the growth that the employees is having, you increase the base pay.
Okay, that's all. That's good. I'm increasing the base pay. I'm expecting this lady she is going to be fit and to be experienced in that
Growth.
yeah, good. Yes, but how I should, when I reach that in the future, how I'm sure that she will do that one.
You're not sure? Then
If
you
you are
should
not
not.
sure, so that
Okay.
means the selection from the beginning was wrong. If you are
Pardon me?
not, if you are not sure that the staff is gonna to do the job, so that means from the beginning she's not good candidate for the promotion.
Yeah, and
No, excuse me.
no, what
That
madam is
means-
saying is a little
excuse me,
different.
But that means that when, how I am going to be sure that she is fit for that from her past experience.
Ma'am,
But you said it's.
ma'am, can I say something?
Yeah.
Actually, in human resource management, there is nothing 100% sure.
Yes.
Because when I come to, when I come and you interview me, I'm marketing my skills to you. If I'm a good marketer, I might be a con man also, but you'll say, wow, Sanjiv is very good and you hire me. And then I turn out to be a total disaster. Sir.
You're giving her a kind of credit up front.
Yeah.
I mean, and then this
So that leads to a lot of engagement.
I think so.
And I'm saying that this is worth considering. This is something which I've been toying with this idea, and I'm trying to convince my senior management also about this, because this is something which will lead to instant engagement in the employees. Okay, let's go to the next one. So the take-home message from it is grow employees with new skills and compensation increase to be linked to future performance. That is the fourth take-home point. And the fifth point, which is most important, is upward performance appraisal. How many of us get upward performance appraisal done for our?
Yeah.
You also do it? Good. In fact, I am very scared my upward performance appraisal is going to happen soon. And the person who's going to do it is sitting here. Okay, so basically we need to identify poor supervisors and mentor them in overcoming their shortcomings. So this upward performance appraisal should not be something which should be derogatory. It should be something which should be considered as a feedback to mentor our supervisors to do better. That's important. And if you see here, this was a 2002 survey done by Kelly Services, which said they identified top reasons for poor managers. They found out ignoring the opinions of junior colleagues, 79% of the respondents responded to that. Always having a reason why new ideas will not work, 76% of respondents. Putting off tough decisions, 75%. And being late for meetings, 72%. So this was the opinion of the juniors of why they formed the performance of their supervisors poor. Okay, now the thing is that we are running short of time. The next speaker is here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're there. So I'll not take too much time. I'll just take 5 minutes more and we'll finish it off. Okay? Now, we did all this so that we could have what? An employee engagement. I will not go into the details of employee engagement because the time doesn't permit. But I'll show you, related to healthcare sector, how employee engagement helps hospital and healthcare providers. So we just go straight there. We go straight there. Okay, I'll just show you one thing. Now there are three kinds of employees. One are these engaged employees who are loyal and psychologically committed. Okay? Then you have not engaged employees who may be productive but not psychologically connected. They are the wait and see. And the third are actively disengaged who are physically present but psychologically absent. So there are three levels of employee engagement that any organization has. Now what happens is if you do an employee engagement survey, these guys, if you motivate them correctly, can go to this site. And if you don't do a survey and if you don't take corrective measures, they can go to this site. And these are the guys who actually sabotage your brand. So it's very important that majority of the employees should move towards an engagement. That's number one. And we did talk about certain things on how to have engaged employees. And now let me just go ahead. I'm sorry, but I had told Susanna that 45 minutes should be the thing, but she said 30 minutes, so it's okay. Now, I'm just going to just show you some stuff about how employee engagement leads to, I said that employee engagement improves financial performance. This is a survey where 410,000 employees across 13,751 business units, 82 organizations, 11 organizations exclusively outside of the US, 34 industries. It was a huge survey which was done, and they found out that in engaged work group, retention increases by 50%, customer engagement increases by 56% that we were talking about, and safety increases by 63%, which in turn leads to a 38% increase in productivity and a 27% increase in profitability. Now let me put back the question to you. So should it be employees first or customers first? Employees first. Because you see here, engaged work groups lead to an enhanced customer engagement by 56%. Okay, now this is related to hospitals. Hospitals in the least engaged quartile pay 1.1 million more in malpractice claims per year than hospitals in the most engaged quartile. So you see how employee engagement reduces your malpractice claims. Workplace engagement reduces mortality index. Most engaged, least mortality index, least engaged, highest mortality index. Workplace engagement reduces complication index. Here, most engaged, the least complication index, least engaged, the highest complication index. This is related to healthcare. So I'm just relating that employee engagement is not about any other industry, it's about every industry including healthcare. And this is another study which said that this 360-bedded hospital saved $800,000 in 3 years by improving employee engagement levels. So if you see, in 1998, the employee engagement level was 3.28. This is the survey that you do and you come up with this number. And this went up to 3.68 in 2000. And the turnover of nurses from 32.9% in 1998 came down to 13.8%. So it helps, employee engagement helps in reduction of attrition. Okay, so I'll just leave you with this thought. Do's for employee engagement. First and foremost, as we said, identify and articulate a compelling set of organizational values, that is moving from a vision to a shared vision. Express the company's mission and vision meaningfully. We talked about the personal impact maps. Help employees understand how their jobs have an effect on the service and quality. Motivate employees to become active champions for the brand all the time by giving them newer skill enhancements and linking their performance to, they're linking their pay to future performance, and focus on employee skill enhancement and growth. And in the end, I'll leave you with this thought: people are the key to maximizing shareholder value and increasing profits in today's economy. And there is a very old Chinese proverb which I like to use in the end: if you want 1 year of prosperity, grow grain. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow trees. If you want 100 years of prosperity, grow people. Thank you very much. Any questions?